welcome back. This is episode 3 of the Ali Family Podcast.
So yeah, another week. There's a lot of things happening. We want to still continue to highlight some of the things that are happening, but bring it back to what's important and just us celebrating Black love, Black excellence. That's really important. A little more technical this episode, so a little bit more around streaming platforms, ways that people are listening to music, what people are listening to, but just wanted to get a little bit more into that. There's definitely some news coming out around the stimulus checks. I know for people are looking forward to seeing what's coming, family size, businesses. So yeah, we've talked a lot about streaming. You have different types of streaming, but specifically, we just want to focus on music. So what's your preferred music platform to stream on? Mention a few, and then we can narrow it down to why the one is your favorite.
Pandora is the first thing that comes to mind just because I've used it for so many years. When we started dating, you introduced me to other platforms platforms of streaming music. Whatever the music that you save on my phone is, what is that platform?
So that's iTunes.
Okay,
that's
iTunes.
Apple.
Yeah, Apple, iTunes, and Pandora. That's really all I use.
Yeah. True.
How about you?
So, for me, it's a little bit more wide. I listen to whatever's free first. There's nothing that we're paying any monthly subscription for. So I'll say that first. iTunes, for sure. Spotify. We celebrate Black excellence, right? So I wouldn't be honest if I didn't mention Tidal. Tidal is no longer majority Black owned. So a big deal. Jay-Z did sell his majority stake of Tidal to Jack Dorsey. He's involved in a lot, just between Cash App, Twitter, a few of those different things. But yeah, Cash App is now the majority stakeholder of Tidal, in addition to the musicians that had original stake within the platform. So there's a couple of platform updates. I had said something last pod, and it really just happened. So I do want to touch back on that. But yeah, so Tidal historically has been majority Black owned. When I first got an update with Sprint, they had given me a few months free trial just to experience it. And while it was free, I did enjoy it, so I can't say that I didn't love the platform. But just for it to be a paid monthly subscription, it wasn't something that I just wanted to budget my dollars for them to go somewhere else. And, we talk about our financial goals, and I couldn't justify that monthly payment to Tidal when there was some other free platforms. So for new music, Spotify is where I hear and listen to a lot of the new music. It's a free version. It's not the premium version. So I know there's a few things that I don't have access to, but I can find what I'm looking for. So yeah, for me, the top 2 would be Spotify and iTunes, yeah.
You talked a little bit about Tidal not being majority Black owned with Jay-Z selling. Sidebar, I've been looking into hair care products that are Black owned. And if you look online, a lot of them will say Black founded. A lot of those individuals or groups, they sold it off to a different company. So when something is was Black owned, it's not Black owned anymore, that individual who used to own it, the founder, they become sort of independently wealthy. But as people continue to buy those products, they're not putting that dollar into a necessarily Black pocket. So Jay-Z's not getting any more money from Tidal.
I'm not 100% sure. I think he still has equity in the... I think the way that the deal worked out is that he gets some equity with the company that purchased it. So he just no longer owns the majority of it. He's not owning it. How dollars come in and whatever deal they work out might still increase his overall value based off of how the companies end up doing some things going forward. There's a lot of speculation that with Cash App being the purchaser, and also the relationship with Twitter and the musicians, it might align itself with just a very easily accessible way for music to just come out without having any additional parties outside of that one company, where you have the paywall, the social media stream, and also the artist. So his catalog is also a part of that. So he'll continue to make dollars as music is sold on a streaming level. But yeah, just the ownership part is the main part that I'm really aware of. The last episode we talked about our favorite social media platforms, and I had mentioned that one of the reasons that Instagram was one of my favorite platforms was because of Versus. And Versus also, Versus just sold their majority stake to Triller. Triller is a social media app. If you kind of were aware of some of the celebrity fights, I know Triller did some of those celebrity fights. Triller,
boxing fights.
Yeah, the one with Mike Tyson and was it Roy Jones?
Really?
It might have been Mike Tyson and Roy Jones, but the undercard was the one that got more popular. It was Nate Robinson had got knocked out, and a lot of people just talked about it because he's a little guy. He was fighting a bigger guy, and he just got knocked out. So that kind of became the talk. But yeah, I want to say it was Roy Jones that Mike Tyson was fighting, and that was done through that app Triller. And they've been doing some pretty cool stuff. I know they have a house out in California. I think it's LA. They have a house out there where they kind of just create content and just do some fun stuff. But yeah, they've done some stuff on YouTube, on other channels. Other people have good stuff going on. Maybe we might get to a point where we get some collaborations and can highlight what some other YouTube channels are doing. But yeah, so similar deal. Timberland and Swizz Beatz will be a part of the musical division of Triller. They are in some level of equity within the brand, but yeah, Versus is no longer going to be shown visually through Apple. I think there will still be a portion of it that's available through Instagram, but a lot of people have said like the visual experience that Instagram offers is a little choppy, but the comments on Instagram are what I like it for. So I watch it to be on Instagram. I know there's going to be that one person with all of the flags going across in the comments and just seeing everybody with the funny comments going back and forth. So yeah, I like it for the comments. So I still will most likely watch it on Instagram. But yeah, just back to, I know we kind of got into music a little bit. We'll still have to see what happens with those deals, but it does make me think about just like the type of music that we like. I think you had kind of mentioned that you would listen to a lot more gospel, and that was really where your listening had been solely.
I got rid of all of my music that wasn't gospel, and I was rocking out through probably college. So high school, college, and then probably after I started to listen back to some of the types of music that I did before. So I certainly do love and enjoy gospel, but I would have to say my preferred music is 90s R&B.
Very specific time and genre.
Right, exactly. I talked about, Pandora. The stations that I listen to most on there are like 90s R&B. Yeah.
Top 5 artists, who would you say?
We know from last pod that I love Lauryn Hill. She wouldn't be considered a 90s R&B artist.
She sang a little doo-wop.
In that doo-wop song, which was the title of the song. I don't think that came out in the 90s. That was after the 90s, right?
Nah, that was 90s.
Was it 90s? You know what? We already know the answer to this because we talked last pod about her reaching diamond level in sales with her Miseducation Lauryn Hill album being 20 years old. So if this is 2021. That came out in 2001.
So yeah, she missed the 90s.
Just missed it, just by a bit. So top 5 90s artists. Brandy.
I feel like during the verses, she was trying to get Monica in a group, but Monica wasn't trying to be in that group with Brandy. She wasn't having it.
No. Brandy for sure. Monica, not just because you said that. She was on my list too.
Okay.
And of course, they had the rivalry around their song together, "The Boy Is Mine." So that got a lot of airtime in a lot of teeny bopper girls' households and everything. But they're separate projects. I really enjoyed. They have some hits. That's why I love that verses that they did together.
Yeah, that was a classic verse.
It really was. So the two of them, and then groups. If I think about groups, I'd have to say Boys to Men. Oh my goodness, we went and saw them.
Yeah.
In concert live.
Valentine's Day weekend 2019.
Yes.
They put on a great show.
They really do. They really do. And it's funny, you see all their different personalities.
I'm down on yeah. I was singing. That was my favorite one. Everybody in the crowd was singing along, but that one came in. Mm-hmm. And to the end of the road.
They had some hits.
Yeah, but that part was fun to sing because everybody in the crowd was singing along.
They were.
It was a movie that we watched, and at the end of the movie, everybody in the movie theaters was also singing "To the End of the Road," that Boys to Men song.
Oh yeah.
I don't remember what movie it was, but it was funny just to hear everybody break out and sing in concert. But they should do a versus. That would be a good. We got to get into who would be the matchup for them. We're at 3. We have Brandy, Monica, Boys to Men.
Yes.
All right,
this next one is also a group that could potentially go toe-to-toe with Boys to Men. But Boys to Men, they're like crooners, good guys. Oh, sweetie, I'm down on bending knee. What did I do to upset you today? The other guys they have a lot of baby, baby, please. Actually, that's going in the background of all their music, baby, baby, please. But they're not quite as vanilla as the Boys to Men. These guys are, do you know?
Jodeci?
Jodeci.
I knew it. The bad boys of R&B. Kind of.
So, Jodeci, but I'd also say Casey and JoJo together.
That's all, yeah.
It's the same thing, because,
the whole package.
Yeah. Jodeci is the 4 guys. Casey and JoJo were the 2 brothers that carried the group. They are, anytime you hear a Jodeci song, you hear their voices. So, all that. Casey and JoJo, Jodeci.
But they all played their part. I know Dalvin. I always hear that name.
I never heard that name before.
Dalvin.
Devontae, I've heard.
Dalvin is in Jodeci.
What?
I promise you.
Dalvin is in Jodeci.
Yeah, man. Some people just did choreography. Some people just wrote lyrics. Some people put the they all were.
Oh, I appreciate that. I didn't realize the other brothers did something.
Yeah, there was some.
I just remember JoJo saying Devontae sing, and then whoever sung after that wasn't Devontae's voice; it was like Casey or something, I think.
Okay, or Dalvin.
Or Dalvin. I didn't know there was a guy with that name in that group. So that's my 4. Ooh, who am I gonna give 5 to? My 5th, the 5th spot in that top 5 90s R&B. Joe. I also have. Okay. Yes, I also have a station.
Is Joe 90s? Is he 90s? Was he?
He's been around for so long.
He's still relevant.
Absolutely.
They say it's a big rich town.
Yeah, that's Joe.
Yeah.
The intro to
Power.
Yeah, I have a station on Pandora for Joe. That's a great question. That makes me feel good inside when I think about 90s R&B.
It was a good era.
It was.
That's when people refer to that time as the golden era. I think they do it with hip hop as well. Mm-hmm. I think so. So it's a range. It's maybe a longer range for hip hop, but I'm going hip hop. I'm not gonna niche it down that much. The era makes it a little bit tougher. Hip-hop. Yeah, it's tougher.
Yeah.
Back in the 70s, it was a hip hop.
Yeah.
You had to be DJ something with your b-boy stance.
Right.
Yeah. So just my quick top 5. It's a combo. Probably more when I started listening. Mm-hmm. So I think for me, it's Kendrick, Jay-Z, Nas. So that's my 3. Mm-hmm. Kendrick, Jay-Z, Nas. I'm going to keep it a little more current. I'm going to keep it to people that are alive also.
Okay.
That's going to, we'll just say that. Tupac and Biggie would be up there, but I'm definitely just staying with my top 5 alive.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going, say Jay-Z, Nas, Kendrick, Drake, because he does rap sometimes, and when he raps, it's good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he always just likes to do the melodics. Mm-hmm. And Kanye. That's mine. Kanye, Drake. I feel like they're similar. They're in a similar bag. Mm-hmm. You kind of have to put them two together. Same with Jay-Z and Nas. You kind of have to put them two together. And then Kendrick's just kind of everywhere. Like, he's representing the West Coast, but also representing some positive, conscious music, but also party music. Hey, we're waiting for a Kendrick Lamar album.
Yes, my favorite rap song is DNA by Kendrick Lamar.
Seriously. Loyalty and royalty inside my DNA. Maybe his last album was 2017. People get excited when they just see a social media post from Kendrick. Like, yeah, it's been a little bit. I think he's just crafting. He's in the lab. They say he's well. I think he's just living life. He has a family. He has a wife. I'm not sure if he has children. He keeps all that stuff pretty private, but hopefully he's just living life, and he'll drop something soon. Those are my 5. Yeah, just want to take a quick break from the music talk and just kind of highlight Black media. Mm-hmm. It's kind of related to music talk in a way, because I remember, okay, I didn't have cable, but I had friends and cousins that had cable, so I knew what was happening on cable. And Black entertainment television, right? BET. At one point, that was Black owned. We have to go back. You know, it's not that recent, but yeah, it used to be Black owned, and it was a huge media platform. And I understand that it's no longer Black owned, but they do still have, like, that's kind of like the question you brought up. Like, once the person who created something sells it, do they still have a responsibility to the legacy of what they created and sold?
Oh, that's the question.
That's a good question. I don't know, because Robert Johnson sold it, cashed out, bought a team, right? Bought a whole NBA team, became the first Black African-American owner of an NBA team. So definitely big deal. Viacom, it's not been the same. They got rid of a lot of their flagship shows. They replaced a lot of their people. So I'm not going to go all the way back on that. But just for Black media, digital, let's just say digital Black media, because there is still print media. I know we have some magazines that are classic magazines. If you grew up in the kind of household that I grew up, you had some of those magazines on your table. You know, Jet, Ebony, Essence, for sure. Like, those are magazines that were a staple. But even not just in your house, but especially if you went to a hair salon or barber shop, like, those were out there. Even to bring it back to music a little bit, The Source, that was a big one. The internet kind of replaced a lot of the physical paper. So I know there's those things.com, right? So there's essence.com, there's thesource.com. But as far as just media platforms, it's really important to have those Black media platforms, Black-owned media platforms, where we know that we can go and get some unbiased news or unbiased information that is really beneficial to us, not just entertaining us, not just there for our leisure, but really just something that's benefiting us. Like, I know when I went to college, they had told us about the one for the businesses.
Oh yeah, Black Enterprise.
Black Enterprise, yeah. They're still online, right? You wouldn't think about it because that magazine became so prevalent, but these people do still have websites. But when you think about those overall websites that you get your information from, a lot of those aren't the main websites that are Black owned. And I know that we're kind of more in an app space where there's a lot of apps that also provide news, and there are some good ones. There are some really good black apps that have some helpful information. So okay, so we're gonna get to the apps. We'll get to the apps, but just to bring it back to the importance of just the black media, YouTube has been a huge platform. That's one of the biggest reasons that we even decided to want to do something, is to kind of have that outlet, and for YouTube to be a great way where it's visible. As far as the algorithm goes, that's different. We can only be found if people are searching for it, but it's at least information that we can put out. Besides that, I think we do a good job of using other platforms that aren't majority black owned to get our media out. But where are those black owned media outlets that are incentivizing people to just join? Byron Allen has a few different media outlets, but that's been a little controversial, where it hasn't been media that's been beneficial to black people, and it hasn't been content that's interesting to black people. And there's black women who have been suppressed and held down and not uplifted through that media. So yeah, we can have it, but how are we utilizing it? So I look at this as just like an opportunity for us to just share our platform with others, for us to share the information that we've gathered, and really to just, this is us building our black media platform, and always looking at the conversations that we're having as just layers and legacy that's being left. We have some exciting news. You're probably finding us on YouTube. We are also on Spotify, so that's something that's pretty cool. So hopefully you're listening to us on Spotify and watching us on YouTube. So yeah, just wanted to throw that in there. Hold on, I said all of that and didn't even mention a relevant black-owned media company that I actually even use on a daily basis or support. I don't even know. You mentioned it. There's so many sales and transactions that have happened. I don't know who owns what. I would say I was going to lean towards The Source, because I do still check out The Source, thesource.com, but I don't know if they're black owned. I want to highlight Blavity.com. That is one that I do actually use a lot of. I get email updates from them. I think I subscribed to their newsletter at one point, and they started to just send me information. Blavity is a place that I found them to be pretty accurate and pretty generous with the way that they share their news. What about you?
There are a couple of apps.
Yeah, let's get into the apps. Let's highlight the apps.
Yeah, there are a couple of apps that are search engines for finding black-owned businesses. Pulling it up on my phone right now. One of those black business directories is called Black Nation. And then the other one is BWS, Black Wall Street. Probably at the beginning of the pandemic, I was looking for more black sources for, information, and wanted to support black business heavy. And so that's when I was first introduced to those. I think you might have told me about one or two of them.
One thing that the apps do have is there is a lot of similar products. So there's a lot of the same hair care products. There's a lot of the same beauty products, which makes sense. I guess if the target is women, for sure, those are important, with makeup, lifestyle, hair, clothes. Those are a lot of the businesses and brands that I've seen in that. And there's ways to talk about all businesses that are doing good service or good products. The thing that I don't see too much are directories that recognize what we're doing, as well as highlighting black businesses, because this is also a black business. When you talk about social media, podcasting, vlogging, you're creating income and you're producing a product that could also potentially be a service depending on how it's used. And it's something that a lot of us kind of play around with. When you look at a lot of the influencers and a lot of the people who are in that content creation world, it's not a lot of black people in that space, but it's a lot of black people who are on those devices and apps that are viewing it. So much gets drilled down into us that You have to produce a tangible product. If it's not at one point in time, if it wasn't considered a brick and mortar physical location, that was even hard for people to recognize that you had a business. If they couldn't go in and see what it was, like e-commerce was like, whoa, what is e-commerce? What? I know people that are a little bit older or just a little more not openly to just be early adapters that when I would tell them about Amazon or when I would tell them about just all different things online, it was really not as quickly to just want to try those things or see those things or even see the business side of things. I definitely utilized e-commerce at earlier points in life to make money, and it just wasn't something that a lot of us really talked about as an opportunity to really look at like a long-term business plan. That was just a quick little aside just to kind of talk about that. But yeah, the apps are useful. Like just to know what's locally around here. It's cool to see the businesses that are here that I didn't know about. Some of them, I think there was a couple of automotive companies that I didn't even know were close around. So that was cool just to see like some black mechanics. There were a lot of black restaurants. That's another one of my gripes about the app, if I'm being honest, because we already know where the black restaurants are. In our city, there's not a lot of them. I can count them all on both of my hands. And I just think that's another one of the categories that's oversaturated on these apps. Like, obviously people need to eat, so I understand that. But I would just like to see more businesses highlighted or just have us think about putting more of our businesses on here that just aren't clothes, hair, and makeup, and food. Yes. Yeah. That's just my personal gripe. But I had found those apps to be useful, so I'll probably start using them more also.
I mean, we're talking about black-owned apps, talking about sources of media. Last pod, we were looking forward to certain black media.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
We recently watched Coming to America.
Start with the positive. So it was cool to see that it's the #1 movie in America. The streaming worked out perfectly for us because we do kind of perfect segue. We do online business and shopping with Amazon. So Amazon Prime was something that we already had that made it free for us to view. Before Coming to America too, I would have to give the disclaimer that the first Coming to America is in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. So I already had Coming to America in a very high esteem, but I did go into this with no expectations. I didn't expect this to be as funny, There was a lot of talk before it came out when they had talked about some of the different ideas and concepts that they wanted to use. And Ryan Coogler had pitched an idea where he would direct it and have Michael B. Jordan play the lead, play Eddie Murphy's son. And that sounded like a great idea. So I'll just say that I'm a huge fan of Ryan Coogler. Whenever him and Michael B. Jordan team up, it's an instant classic. That is black excellence. Ryan Coogler is undefeated when it comes to his content that he's created. And Michael B. Jordan is also more recently undefeated with his relationship status and his movies that he's been a part of. Definitely a fan of his moves. Undefeated, like
with his relationship status. So the person that he's in a relationship with, or the fact that she's a black woman?
I love both. Okay. I love the fact that she's a black woman, and I also appreciate that they both could have probably went either direction and chosen any partner, but they've found some happiness with each other. So definitely that's a plus. But yeah, just the idea that Coming to America would have had Michael B. Jordan in it would have been really cool. I'm sure he would have did it for the love and not really even needed like the big bag to do it, because he's been in some really good black films, or films where he's been a strong black lead. To me, makes it a black film. So that's something that I really appreciated his work of. But to the movie, I would say it was a good movie. It's worth watching. I wish they could have went either left or right with it, but they kind of stayed in the middle. So it's not quite a family friendly movie. I couldn't have a child under the age of 10 watch the movie with me. So it wasn't in that level of, Eddie Murphy makes a lot of family friendly movies, like where the little kids can watch and the adults can watch and everybody can enjoy that. So there were some things in the movie where you wouldn't want a 10-year-old or a younger to watch it. But then it wasn't really mature content enough to the point where, as an adult, the edge was never approached. Like, they never took it to the other side. So I feel like it was in the middle, as far as the comedy. Like, it didn't really go there.
Yeah.
Like, there were some things that were kind of funny. I like the family lineage jokes when they were talking about the ancestry of Eddie Murphy and his father and his father and his father. There were some funny things there. I think there were some funny things when they went to New York and was in the family.
Spoiler.
No.
Back to America.
Well, yeah, they go back to America. They do. He does go back to New York. I don't think that's too much of a spoiler.
Okay.
If you've seen the trailer, you at least saw that they were trying to go back to America.
You know what? You're right. Yeah.
You don't know why. We're not going to tell you why he went back to America. But he was in America, and they were in a couple of different funny environments. They went back to the barbershop in New York. That was pretty funny. Like, that was really funny to me. Yeah, that might have been the funniest scene for me when they were at the barbershop. And then at the end, I won't spoil it, but a special performer makes. I think the musical performances for me were the most enjoyable. Not necessarily funny, but enjoyable. Like, I enjoyed the musical performances. There were some really unexpected musical performances.
Yes.
Legendary musical performances. Those are my highlights. So what about you?
Okay. Sidebar, I know you talked about Ryan Coogler's pitch to direct with Michael B. Jordan. I think it's too, obviously Michael B. Jordan was in the Black Panther. That is about Africa, or set in Africa, and in that movie he played an American, kind of going back to his father's homeland in Africa. And if he were in Coming to America, that would have been a half American black man and a half African black man. I think it would have been too much overlap. People would have watched it like, oh, here this brother go again. He's got to play every American black and African black man. He doesn't define everybody's experience. So I would imagine maybe that's why Eddie Murphy was like, no, Ryan Coogler, sir, I'm good.
No, because I don't trust Eddie Murphy's judgment anymore.
Oh.
I was listening to I'm gonna sidebar your sidebar.
Okay.
I was listening to an interview with Arsenio Hall where he said
Oh boy.
I was watching an interview with Arsenio Hall where he said Eddie Murphy wanted Tracy Morgan to play his son.
I hope was just a joke.
No, that was serious. No, he was serious. Tracy Morgan's in the movie. I think the only reason Tracy Morgan's in this movie is because Eddie Murphy wanted him to be his son originally, and then didn't work out. So, dang, is that a spoiler? Well, we did kind of spoil it a little bit because we talked about Ryan Coogler wanted Michael B. Jordan to play the son.
Yeah. So
there is a son. I don't know if that's a huge spoiler. Maybe mini spoiler alert. The son was a character that Eddie Murphy wanted Tracy Morgan to play, and Ryan Coogler had thought that Michael B. Jordan would have been a good role for the son. So for me, I feel like that was where a larger part of the letdown for me came from that role.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel that the person who played the role of the son commanded enough. He didn't take it there. Like, he didn't command the role. And yeah, I think that would have been a role. You know, I think there were so many heavy hitters in the movie, so many big names for that role. It should have been a big name or somebody that we knew.
I do agree with you on that one.
I think they tried to do too much in this movie. I think that was part of it.
For sure.
Because in the original, okay, this isn't a spoiler. The movie's old. Everybody's seen the original. In the original, it was a very specific storyline. Like, he was coming from Zamunda to find his queen. He looked at the globe and was like, oh, Queens. That's where you go to find your queen. Right. So they went to Queens and then went through all of this shenanigans to find the queen and eventually, you know, found his queen and went back to Zamunda, right? You know, there's a lot more that happened in the movie, but it was there was one storyline and they followed all the way through. With this, okay, we gave partial spoiler. Like, there's a son, right? So going to Zamunda to find the son, like, the whole movie could have just been centered around that. And I think it would have been better if they had just focused on that and then made the son a stronger lead. But there were other characters. There was just too much other stuff going on that took away.
And it all sort of was bunched into, however, like a 2-hour. You're
not
right.
Even,
too many storylines.
Not even 2 hours. Like
less than.
Yeah, like a little more than an hour and a half.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, it was too much. It was way too much.
It was too much, and I felt like some of the African American characters, they were portrayed in very stereotypical ways from what I was seeing. So, and then the African, well, not all of them, but many of them, the Black African characters were portrayed sort of with positive stereotypes, I suppose.
More. So when you say Black Africans, not African Americans, the Zamoon. Oh yeah, okay, got it. Yep, yeah, that is true. Zamundians. I don't know what they're called. Yeah,
I don't know.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's okay. So, Coming to America franchise is like, it's a funny movie. It's a comedy, and so from the first Coming to America, some of the Black Africans, they were, I would say, stereotyped for comedy's sake, sort of as like silly and like happy or whatever. And just the fact that, like, oh, in Africa, they're kings and queens, which they certainly are, but like...
But he thought they were queens, that he came to New York because he thought there were queens in America, too.
For sure, but just this inflated idea of, like, Black people in America thinking about Africa, there are kings and queens over there, and, like, such elevation above status over here.
True. I don't think we can compare the first movie because the first movie was so good with that. Like, they did a good job including the culture shock of, like, thinking that you were going to see one thing and then seeing something different. Like, I think the first movie, like, really captured the culture shock. It broke down those stereotypes. I think so. Like, McDowell's. Like, the family was he owned... He owned a, it wasn't McDonald's, it's McDowell's. But, very respectable family. Like, they, business owner, mother and father were together. The woman was she had high standards. She wasn't going to just settle with anyone. So those have been different stereotypes. But I think the way that they chose to highlight those was really tactfully done. And even thinking that you were going to come to America and see one thing and then getting there and you just see the reality of it. I think that was done really well. First one, Coming to America, the first one.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was done really well, where the culture shock of Coming to America sat in, but also the culture of Americans was really portrayed in a way where it was respectful. Like the brothers in the barbershop were there just kind of giving them some of that culture of what happens in black neighborhoods with the barbershops. The first one was just way better. Like that respect that they gave black families, when they looked at him and they were about to cut his hair and they were like, "What do you put in your hair? Just, what is this?" He's like, just juices and berries, all that, like, just those kind of jokes on Africans, like, right? Like, not just automatically elevating them up to being this regal individual, but, like, just capping on them, like, bringing them down a little bit and just making them, like, a sweeper and a janitor and somebody that didn't have all this status. I think those are some stereotypes that when people come from another country, they could have all of the status, but still have that reality of what America is and have to adjust. They could be a prince, but here they're a floor washer and they have to just that, or they could be a doctor in another country and here they have to come and be an Uber driver. Like, I think those are some real stereotypes, but I think it was done just way better in the first one. The second one was just sloppy. Like, they didn't even try. Like, they just, whatever, they went the other, yeah, you're right. Like, they went the other side with stereotypes. Like, they didn't even look for, like, the good stereotypes. They just went for, like, what they thought, I guess, was going to be funny, and it wasn't. Yeah, I don't know.
I agree. Murphy is African-American. He's a multi-millionaire. So, he's a comedian, and this is his movie, so I don't even know if, like, it was intentional. Maybe the part that was intentional was just trying to level out all the positive stereotypes about Black Americans in the first one with sort of negative stereotypes of Black Americans in the second one. I don't know. But I guess that was just, that's just what I noticed. Like, oh, wow, every single person in this demographic are displaying a lot of these stereotypes. But aside from that, I enjoyed the movie. Majority of it, I enjoyed the music. Like you were saying, the like sort of surprise performances. At one point, it kind of almost looked like a musical for a minute. There's a lot of music throughout the movie. It was funny. It wasn't as good as the first one, but it was worth watching.
Worth watching for sure. If you haven't seen it yet, please go watch it.
Yes.
So yeah, we're going to talk more about it next pod. So if you haven't seen it between now and next week, see it, and then we'll be able to talk a little bit more about it in detail without it being spoiler alert.
Yeah.
So yeah, last month I joined Clubhouse, and you joined Clubhouse this month.
Yes.
Maybe like 2 weeks. You may have been on for about 2 weeks.
Yes, about that.
So, heard a lot about Clubhouse. Initially, when I heard about it, I'm like, okay, this isn't here to stay. Why am I even trying to listen to it? Didn't pay any attention to it. I thought it was more just for celebrities at first.
Same here.
And then it became something that I heard more everyday people talking about. And then it's like, okay, now I want to learn more about what Clubhouse is about. Like, what's the big to do? Why are all these people on it? I had a lot of curiosity around Clubhouse, and I was like, okay, this is something that I'm hearing more about. Let me join. So I joined. Obviously went through the process. I'm going to have to nominate me, accept it for me to join, so-and-so, so-and-so. And I don't think I fully understood everything that it was about when I first got on. Like, there were some good conversations. Like, they were talking about masculinity and just the way that men are interacting with women, or even talks around money and financial responsibility. So those are some of the talks that got me into it. Since I've been on, I've enjoyed Clubhouse. So I'll say that. Like, I really enjoy the connections. They haven't been in personal connections. Like, nothing where I've met somebody and it's been like, oh, let me get to know you. Like, it hasn't been that. But I feel like for the purpose of exposing our brand more and learning more about social media, learning more about YouTube, learning more about podcasting. Like, that's been beneficial. There's been some good groups around investing, some good groups around marketing, just ways to share what you're doing. Like, a lot of rooms become pitch rooms, I feel like. And a lot of rooms where it's just like, hey, you got a couple of minutes, tell us about what you do. You know, you have the stage. People might follow you, check out what you do if you have your information in the bio. So that's been cool. But there's also been like a really bigger conversation. I just don't think I have enough invested into Clubhouse for some of the things to reach me, or like to kind of, I don't think I matter enough in the Clubhouse ecosystem for a lot of the conversations that are happening. Moderators, there's a lot of conversation around people being kicked off the app, like just being able to be seen. So that I connect with. Being a Black person and being marginalized is not, like, that's not anything that I support. So any opportunity to highlight and uplift what's happening, I always take those opportunities and try to find ways to let people know about what's happening, like spread the word, whether it's on or off Clubhouse, but just like have more conversations about that. So the equity conversation of Clubhouse and how it's not really, I think the saying is like, Black people make it cool, like we build it up and then other people cash out on it. So it's an app, it's a business that has been valuated to be over $1 billion. So it's over $1 billion business. There's 2 white men who are co-founders. Like, I know they have other stakeholders, but they're co-founders. So that's money, that's wealth that'll potentially end up going there. And I do agree with the conversations of trying to find ways to monetize the app that benefits Black people. Definitely finding ways for the app to benefit Black people monetarily. It's a big deal because there's a lot of other apps that do that. You know, like YouTube. Like YouTube, you can build it up. And there's people there with huge followings, like have really amassed like a large platform, and should find a way for that to be monetized directly through the app, because the app is they're getting approached by people that want to do sponsorships with them, or brands and businesses paying them money. So some of that money should be trickling down to the people that make it a good experience. It's been a good experience for me. I think there's a lot more cool Black people on there that I've been able to meet. I feel like I'm at a conference, you know, kind of. Yes. I feel like that, like, it's taken up some of that conference time where we were able to all like be in person and learn stuff. So I like that format, the stage and being in the audience and being able to listen. I do want to talk more on the app, so that's a goal of mine. Like, I want to be able to, you know, get on the stage and share more. You know, sometimes that's easier in some rooms. You know, sometimes that's harder in some rooms. You know, but that's just something that I have to learn and figure out while I'm on the app. So yeah.
I agree with you. It does feel like a conference. I think I've learned a few things while I'm on the app. Hasn't been any personal connection. But if we weren't in our current pandemic, it wouldn't be like a situation where we're like, oh, let's link up, let's have lunch. Nothing like that so far.
The question is, if there was no pandemic, would there be a Clubhouse?
That's a good question.
What do you think? I have my theory. I don't want to give it all away, but I do think this is something that was created during the pandemic. I'll get into the theory later, but yeah.
That's an interesting theory, yeah. I'm looking forward to hearing what you're thinking about that.
But what do you think?
There aren't any situations where I'm like, oh, let's meet with these people or exchange phone numbers, nothing like that. But I do feel tapped into what I consider my community. You know, I hear people talking about the same things that we talk about, just personally in our home, or talking about the same things that I think about. I'm like, okay, you can find communities of like-minded people, like-minded in terms of society, different interests. So that's what's really cool about it. And then you can learn some things. There are people who are subject matter experts. There are some people who, for a living, they do certain things and they'll come on the app and talk about those things for free. So it's a free conference all day, every day about anything.
I really like that part a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've learned a lot of tips
Mm-hmm.
with investing, sports cards, media, brand, marketing, just like, you're right. I don't know who said it. I wish I could remember their name. I would fully credit the person who said it, but they were like, Clubhouse is the place where you really do get a lot of tips and tricks. Like, just like those hacks on how to kind of push forward in whatever type of industry you're trying to move forward with, or just in life. Like, little things that, hey, this has worked for me. I found this useful. Let me just share it, and that might be valuable to somebody else. So I also really enjoy the Clubhouse lingo. I'm kind of building. I'm kind of building my Clubhouse dictionary. There's so many words that you start to hear over and over, and it's coming up more in my vocabulary off Clubhouse, which is pretty funny. Like, I'll be at work in a Zoom and just be talking about, like, adding value. In my head, I'm thinking, like, we got to reset the room. Like, you know, I know even us, like, we say reset the room a lot now, like, just talking about what's happening respectfully. You know what? That might end up being the name of this pod. Respectfully.
That's funny.
Man, it's really one of those key words.
Let's do that. Yes.
Man, respectfully.
Somebody
you said somebody in LA probably created that word on there.
Right.
It sounds like somebody from LA would have said that. Respectfully. Tap in. Yes, tap in. I say that. Now I'm saying that at work. Like, yeah, you know, we got to tap in later and talk more about this. So it's
do people pick up that that's like...
No, so I know. So, like, everybody that I work with, we have each other's phone numbers.
Oh, right.
And, like, there's only one other person from my job that's on there. Two people from my job that's on there. And this is how it is, right? You get in, and then you think everybody else in the world knows about it. And I was in a group. I asked, like, I was like, you know, have you all heard of an app called Clubhouse? And they were like, no, we don't know what that is. Like, what are you talking about? So it's just one of those things where you realize it's big and it's fun while you're on it, but it's still in its beta form and it hasn't reached to Android yet. So I think there's a little bit over about 10 million people on the app right now. And I feel like I'm probably following every black person on the app right now. What's some other words? You know, you got tap in, you got...
I think you set them all.
The bio, like your emojis. The emoji use is something that I started to think about when I just text people regularly. Like, oh, which emoji is going to connect the best? Because I know on Clubhouse, they always talk about how, like, emojis are searchable. And you have to have the right emoji in your, you know, in your interest and in your bio to, like, help people more find what you're talking about, or, like, find mutual interests. I found some really good groups, some alumni groups with the college that I went to. That was pretty cool to see that. Some groups with black men, really just creating space to talk about issues that we experienced. That was really cool. And yeah, still exploring. Still, it hasn't been a full 2 months yet. Still new. It hasn't even been a full month for you yet, so I know it's still new. I've kind of went in it thinking more business-like, like thinking of ways that we can help grow our business and help growing our business by making connections. Definitely genuine connections, but more from a business perspective than a personal perspective. I think that's just where I'm at right now with it. But we'll see. You know, things change. I might be in a room with somebody who has, like, all the interests with me, and then we become trading buddies, and I'm like, yo, what card or what sneakers are you checking for? You know, you never know. It happens, but so far it's just been more business, more like investment talk, black culture for sure. So, yeah.
It's interesting being in a lot of rooms. One has a picture posted and your name under the picture. It's indicated, like, who's speaking. Just, you know, it's not a video chat. It's basically a phone call through the app with
a lot of
with
people.
a lot of people,
like a party line.
So you're either speaking or you're listening on the phone with up to thousands of people, depending on this. Sometimes it's a room of like 10 people, sometimes a lot more. I myself just looking at the pictures and wondering, how does this person like look in real life? You know, you have your picture up there and you might be speaking virtual stage, but in real life you could be in your kitchen like cooking something or have your PJs on. It's just interesting, and it's like,
especially like you mentioned, for this being an app that's happened during a pandemic, that's also a key factor in what you're talking about, because it's okay, like maybe if you live in Atlanta or Houston, maybe it's not as closed in those, or like, you know, some cities are a little more open, but in most the places that we're living at, it's still a pandemic. Like, you're still not going to the barbershop, you're still not going to the hair salon. I cut my own hair. I'm really proud of my haircut. I cut my hair.
Looks good.
But yeah, like, we're not really open going places, so I don't think a lot of people really look like this, because where are they going for that upkeep? Like, you're not, you know, like, I understand, you know, the vaccine is out and some people have had it already, so maybe that's allowing some people to go out and do these things. But I know COVID is definitely creating a barrier around being able to live like 100% how you were living before 2020. So you're right. Like, I don't think some pictures might have been pre-2020 pictures. Some pictures might be current. I think my picture is a 2020 picture. But you're right. Like, I'm on the app sometimes in my pajamas. It is funny. Like, it's not, and I think that's a comforting thing for me to, like, it's like, oh, they can't see me. Like, be as comfortable as you want, and nobody would know. They think you're looking very
put together.
Confident and put together.
Yeah, because the picture of you, you know, you're speaking, and all you see is a person's picture. It gives you more than a phone conversation, because at least you see a picture. But it's like, this picture is kind of like your avatar.
Oh, yeah.
The picture of you is your avatar. So it's like, you know, as technology continues to advance, just the person and the essence of the person is being separated. Okay, so do you think that this app will continue to be present once things are 100% open back up? That's what you brought up. Yeah, when you said that earlier, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. Like, even with like the versus competition, as things became a little more open within COVID, they started having the at one point the like the Brandy and Monica, they were in the same room, you know, instead of people at two separate locations. So I don't know, maybe it will still exist, actually, because like you were mentioning, like, there's some comfort in like not needing to present your full self, your full physical self there, but still people being able to see your picture, sure, and just associating everything that you say with this image of your most put together self.
Yeah.
So maybe it will still exist.
I think so. If you're watching this and you're on Clubhouse, respectfully, get as much of a benefit out of it this year as you can. And I'm saying that as somebody that does a lot of, in my professional life, right, my non-YouTube life, in my 9-to-5 life, I guess you could say, I do a lot of data work. I do a lot of research into understanding community and how people interact and like what people do, like really thinking about relationships and engagement, and just get the benefit that you can get in 2021. Monetize, I think that's the key word. Find a way to monetize it this year. Just from what I'm seeing, you know, from Facebook, from Twitter, from Instagram, if they do what they typically do this time next year, I think we're talking about a different app. You know, I don't think it completely goes away. I think it's just no longer 10 million active people on it weekly. You know, like Snapchat is still a thing.
True.
It's just not where Snapchat was at the height of Snapchat. Or, you know, it's a very popular app. Like, young people use it all the time. Same with TikTok. TikTok is huge. TikTok is very popular. But it's also demographically different, where it's a different group of people that might see something. I think Clubhouse has the potential to still remain this popular, and it's really across a lot of different ages and demographics. That's really like the cool thing that I've seen about it is there's people on there from their teens all the way up into. I've been in rooms where 80-year-old people were speaking and dropping gems, like life knowledge, like really beneficial gems. So I think that's really like a huge benefit of it right now because it's still very cross-sectional. You can't say the same thing about those other apps. Like,
true.
And like you said, because it's as simple as making a phone call, I think that's what is really endearing to the older, the older population, the older generation, where so like Facebook, similar. I think that's another place that's very inviting to the older, the older generation. But for Snapchat, I don't know how many grandparents are on Snapchat. I don't know how many great grandparents are on TikTok. I mean, there might be. The For You has some really funny content with older people getting like jamming down and like a lot of. You showed me one where there was I think like 5 different lines of generations in one. Like that was pretty cool. So TikTok is something I know we talked about it last episode. We are going to make some leeway in TikTok, so gonna still find a way to get on there. But just to bring it back to Clubhouse, we're resetting the room, just to bring it back. I just wonder what it looks like when it becomes both on Android and Apple. So that's one question. We'll see. But it does feel nice to be early on something. So wherever it goes is where it goes. I'm like not worried about my followers at all. I'm not worried about people like learning more about me as an individual. But I am interested in seeing just like how it could elevate the message of what we're trying to do more and really connect with more Black people, connect with more people that are just doing some really cool things in life and talking about some ideas that we don't get a chance to just be around each other and talk about. Like, those are the best rooms for me. In some rooms where people have talked about reparations, where people have talked about those type of conversations that we have on a daily basis. So that was really, those are the kind of things I like. I like just that progressive talk that you don't really get to have in a lot of spaces. So yeah, I'm looking forward to being on it. So I do get some more benefits. Going on brand is like always in the back of my mind. Like, I'm always thinking about what can I take from this conversation to help build what we're trying to do, or like what can I add to this conversation that's gonna help someone else that can like benefit from experience that I've had. So I try to do both. I try to get in around other people that have expertise and ask them questions that, can share some tips with me of how to do things better. I know we spent a lot of time talking about Clubhouse. In this conversation with the most recent things that have been coming up, Stimmy hit. Stimulus checks are either, depending on when you're hearing this, it's already probably either in your bank account, the check has arrived at your house, or it's in the mail, or it's not, and then you have some issues with the IRS potentially. Or maybe you just made over the income threshold that doesn't put you in a position to receive it. For us, we are in the income threshold where we can receive it and use it and appreciate it. Both as individuals and also as a business owner. So there's some relief coming. I guess that's always the way to look at it, is like it is economic relief. I think what I do, just to break it down, all right, so before we get into the individual side of things, I do want to talk to, I always, like, this is a segment. This is going to become a weekly segment.
Okay.
To my entrepreneurs out there, my business owners, I want to drop some gems and give some information. So last year, there was an early round of funding that came through the I think it was the EIDC, SBA.gov, and it was basically relief money that came because your business was affected by COVID-19. That money came out really early, and there were two parts of the money. So there's one part of the money that you get, and you get that money, and it's yours, and you don't have to worry about paying it back. Then there's another part of that money that you got, and it was a loan that you did have to pay back. That was the EIDL. Sorry, just wanted to remember that. EIDL. Mm-hmm. So this year, this month actually, March, that special round of funding just came back. It doesn't have to be repaid if you qualify and receive it. It's not a PPE loan. So it is a little bit different to that. It's connected to the EIDO money. So it's split in two. If you apply early enough, which basically now, when you see this, apply if you're a small business. If you apply early enough, you can be qualified for the full amount that you, I think it can be up to $10,000 per employee that your company has that you can get. That money does not have to be paid for. So March 1st is when that money became available. So you do need a few things. So you will need your tax information from the end of 2018. So which would have been when you file tax year. So tax year 2019 through the first 2 months of 2021, you'll need to have your statement of earnings of which your business has made monthly from that time on. And they'll ask you some additional questions, which are companies. Some people say FIN, but your federal identification number, mm-hmm. Of what's been established through the IRS when your company became official. You'll need your company's official name, so whatever, if it's a LLC, S Corp, however you have it set up. So ours is set up as an LLC, so that's the way that I had to file. Just go to SBA.gov. It should show up if you type in EIDO. This is the best time to apply for that money because the money that you don't have to pay back is the best money. Last year, I didn't hear about this until August, and by the time I applied, I was only eligible for the round of money that you had to pay back. So which was cool, but I'm hoping I applied pretty early, so hoping to hear back from that. And I honestly just found out about this information last week, so it was after we shot our last episode, so really just getting a chance to just share this information now. So that's just the special segment, straight out small business owners, entrepreneurs, but to families, to individuals, there's also that stimulus money. We don't know how much we're getting. We've heard stuff. It's so that money, right? I know we have a small child. There's supposed to be a part of the money that you get for having a child. There's supposed to be a part of the money you get for being married. Mm-hmm. What our letter that we got, right, you probably got the letter before you got the check, or you probably got the letter before you got the deposit in your bank. So we got a letter, and the amount that the letter said we were supposed to receive is not the same amount that I'm hearing people receive that also have a child and are married. Mm-hmm. So I need my answers. I'm going to wait until I see this check, but I have questions that I need answers because that money needs to match a married couple that has a child. Having a child is expensive, especially a child that's still within the age range of needing pull-ups, right? Of still having to eat specific food. They're not quite at the age where they're just eating what you're eating. So having to buy toddler food, diapers, pull-ups. The COVID money helps with that. It's a relief. Having to pay monthly expenses. Gas is not as cheap as it was this time last year. So the price of gas definitely is a big thing. Food is expensive.
We need our money.
I don't want to go down the long list of things, but you get the point. We need our money for sure. So we haven't received ours yet. We're still waiting. Any stimulus-related news I've been kind of keeping my eye out for. So hopefully we get the amount that we need based on our living situation. I feel like we're going to have to contact the IRS. So here's what happens, right? The IRS is using our income tax information from either 2018 or 2019 to determine how they get this money out. I'm trying not to give away the age of our child, but he was not born in 2018. It depends what year's taxes, because they could be using the year's taxes that doesn't qualify us, but we have a child now. So within the last 3 years, if you've experienced a life change, if you've gotten married this year or last year, you might have to contact the IRS because they're not looking at those recent life changes with how they're getting the money out. So yeah, I just want to say that to the people that, if you had a child 2019, 2020, or 2021, depending on when in the year the child was born, or depending on when in the year you got married, there's a really good chance they don't have your best current status for the amount of money that you should be receiving. We need that money. We're looking forward to it when it comes. I already got plans for a couple of dollars here and there. Definitely will invest some of the money, invest some and just save the rest. But yeah, we also got stuff that we need to spend money on. This is episode 3 of the Ali Family Podcast, titled Respectfully. If you're a Black business, if you are a Black influencer, if you are a Black content creator, media platform, if you're just a Black person, we're definitely looking to collaborate, have those conversations, learn more about what you're doing. Our podcast will get to the point where we start to have some guests and we highlight what different people are doing through some different media platforms. Kind of talked about how some of our videos used to look. You kind of see that platform, so we'll definitely look to connect with you depending on what you have. If you want to share some products with us that you want us to talk about, if it matches our brand and it matches what we're about, we'll definitely highlight it.
Thank you for tuning in to the Ali Family Podcast. Stay blessed.